Hi guys, welcome back to my channel Lush Gardener. So a lot of you guys have been asking me about how to save a succulent from sunburn. Now of course I have been talking about this on and off, that always acclimate your succulent before putting it out in direct sunlight. Now a lot of times what happens is that even after your succulent has been acclimated, the sun's direction can change, and usually the intensity of the sun can be a little bit more than what the succulent has been acclimated to. For example, this succulent started getting sunlight until 1 p.m. It was only acclimated to get sun until 11 a.m. But because of the change in the sun's direction, it started getting sunlight until 1 p.m. Now, I completely forgot about this succulent because I do have a lot of succulents, and a lot of times some of the succulents get ignored or I kind of miss out on them. I had to change the position of this pot, but I forgot about it, and here is the result. You can see it got completely burnt, but then I moved it to indirect bright light where it is right now, and now you can see there is a lot of new growth on the crown area. Let me focus a little bit. There we go. You can see there's a lot of new growth on the crown area. But guys, this is not going to be the case every time. There is certain things that you need to keep in mind. Now, for example, if I'm going to touch the leaves of this succulent, you can see it is still very hard. It's still very stiff, which means that it does have a very high possibility of surviving this sunburn. Now let's say for whatever instance, if your succulent feels very soft, it's become almost like a vegetable, very soft, very saggy, then most probably that particular succulent is not going to survive, because along with sunburn it also had a shock. So most probably the succulent that is turned soft might not make it. But as I always say, don't give up hope. Keep it in indirect bright light. Maybe there might be a miracle that might happen and you might be able to save the succulent. But 80% of the time, if the succulent is turned soft post it getting burnt in direct sunlight, then the possibility of it surviving is very, very low. Whereas this one, the leaves are still very stiff. They're not very soft, slightly soft, but not very soft. So this succulent will make it through. All I have to do is just ensure that it's kept in indirect bright light until the crown area starts to grow back again. Luckily, this is an echeveria. It is summers, it is in its growing period, so most probably it will start to put out the new growth on the crown area much faster. If the same thing would have happened during winters, again during winters it's a very rare case for a succulent to get sunburn unless you are keeping it in afternoon sunlight around like from 1 p.m. onwards until 3 p.m. Then there is a possibility of the succulent getting burnt. But again, during winters it's a very rare case. This happens more often during the summers. A lot of people are having this issue, especially if you're not using a green shade cloth. If you're not acclimating your succulent, this is what's going to happen. So thankfully I happened to notice this well in advance. Ever since I moved it in indirect bright light, there has been a good amount of growth. Now let's say your succulent looks like this. The leaves are still very stiff and you have moved it to indirect bright light. All you have to do is just wait. Do not add any fertilizers because the succulent is already damaged. Do not add any fertilizers. Water only when the soil is completely bone dry. Let's say that you have recently moved it from direct sunlight and kept it in indirect bright light. Do not water it immediately. Let the succulent kind of adjust and settle in the new place that you have moved in. Just like how you tend to do it for a newly purchased succulent, you have to follow the same process. Wait for a couple of days after you have moved it to a different location, and then after let's say a week or so, if you tend to see that there are wrinkles, because the wrinkles will also appear on this succulent as well, because it's still alive, it is still going through the entire process of photosynthesis, absorbing water from the environment, absorbing water from the soil. So it's going to go through the same process. So there might be wrinkles. If you happen to notice it, go ahead and water it, or else just wait for some time. Again, the same process. You have to wait for the soil to be completely bone dry and then only go ahead and water it. Do not overwater it, because again it's quite fragile at this point of time. Anything can go wrong. So just have patience. Just enjoy the new growth that is coming up. Water when the soil is completely bone dry. Do not add any fertilizers and continue to keep it in indirect bright light until you tend to see a very good amount of growth on the crown area. Once you tend to see that the succulent has fully grown and the crown area looks much better, then again you have to do a slow introduction to morning direct sunlight. If you are not going to acclimate it and put it out in direct sunlight right away, even for that matter morning direct sunlight, it will again end up like this. So you have to be extremely careful. So guys, that's all about it. I hope that this video was helpful to you. If it was, please hit the like button, and if you're new to my channel, please consider subscribing to it. Until then, take care, stay safe, and keep propagating.